Welcome to the Sensual Feminine Life podcast. I am your host, Jen Bagaiski, where I will take you on a deep dive into your own life so that hidden, hurting parts of your soul can be healed. This is a podcast about love, sex, pleasure, and relationships. You will learn how to feel safe, to truly love and connect with your body. Surrender to the desires and hungers of your soul and step into the beautiful, sensual, feminine, sexy, and powerful woman you were created to be. I believe deeply in my soul that sexuality is the missing key in personal growth and development. It is time to toss away all of the nonsense you have been taught about these taboo topics and heal your relationship to your sexuality. You can eliminate shame and guilt, own your sexy confidence, feel incredible in your skin, embrace the depths of exquisite pleasure, and have the deeply connected relationships you truly desire. Grab your cozy socks, pour yourself a glass of wine, get comfy, and let's get started.
Hello there. Welcome everyone to the Sensual Feminine Life podcast. And today I am super excited because I have a very special guest and dear friend joining us today. I have Karen Leba Baker, and people actually, her clients say that she is known as the Badass Fairy Godmother.
Okay.
Yes, which I think is amazing. And Karen and I met in Mama Gena's pleasure coaching certification program. So many of you have probably heard me talk about the importance and the power of being a pleasure coach. And Karen is also one of the, I think it's less than 50 tri-certification pleasure coaches in the world. So this is going to be some really juicy conversation that we are going to have here. So today, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is the concept of nurturing ourselves as women. We know that self-care is so important, and yet most of us are too busy trying to take care of everyone else that we don't take the time to nurture ourselves. And Karen, so I'd like to get some of your perspectives on not just the component of nurturing ourselves for ourselves, but also the nurturing ourselves and how it relates to our relationships with our partner, our relationships with our business.
What a great question. Thank you for asking that question. Gosh, I mean, how many times do women stop for one thing in between our jobs and taking care of our households, our kids, our employees, our coworkers? How many times do we make a choice that is about taking care of someone else? Like, oh, I'll throw the office Christmas party, or I'll volunteer to be vice president of that organization without really tuning in. Do I have the bandwidth for that? Or am I trying to get approval from the outside so I can continue to ignore what I need on the inside? So nurturing is about finding out what does the other need, and the other in this case meaning the part of us that isn't tuned into accomplishment, that isn't tuned into looking good or making a difference in the world, but finding this part of ourself that has needs that aren't about interface with the outside world, that are about the inside of us. It might be even hard to think about what it is I'm saying because that part of you might not get hardly any of your attention.
Yeah, and I would imagine that the women that you support, in your business, that they're overworked, right? They've got challenges with
Fuck,
their
I'm talking
relationships.
about.
Yeah. What?
You don't know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yes.
But it doesn't matter what anyone understands about what we're talking about. What matters is that there's a feeling kind of like you're going home for Thanksgiving and you walk in the house and the first thing you smell is the pies baking. And you may not have smelled it for years since the last time you were there in college, or you may have never even smelled it. But it's just this warm fragrance that makes you feel good. That's what people feel around me, is something that makes them feel good. And
I
then
love
they get the details over time if they stick around.
Yeah.
It's
No, I
the
love how you
way
said that. It's not about the what they're doing and thinking, right? It's the how you are feeling. And how often do women allow themselves to be driven by how they feel as opposed to how they think?
Yep, or what's expected of them, what their culture, their religion, their upbringing, their parents expected of them. I mean, I knew right off the bat it was expected that I was going to go to college. I mean, I knew that from the youngest age. It wasn't even a question, are you going to go to college? It was just an expectation. Everybody did it.
Yeah.
And there are other more subtle expectations about the ways that we live our lives. And in a way, that's fine until about age 4. But at that point, we start having ideas of our own based on interesting things that we're seeing and smelling and wanting. And there's just not a really strong culture of female sovereignty where the parents say, yeah, whatever you want, as long as it lights you up, darling. And we're going to give you feedback about whether it lights you up or not. So you don't take the route that ends up basically disappointing you, because we're constantly able to tune into each other and see, is it really lighting you up? Is it really satisfying your spirit? Or are you doing it for some other motivation? And there's so many other motivations for why to do things. Just ultimately, they're all bankrupt if it's not something that deeply moves you and deeply attracts you.
Yeah. So let me ask this. I know you've been doing this for 30 plus years, even more than that. I don't know if I have that right, but
I'm not that old.
you're very young, right? So how did you get started? Like, where did you begin, right? Like, if there are women out there that are listening that know they need to focus more on self-care, right? But don't do it. Like, what was the catalyst for you that allowed you to move forward and to not only do this for yourself, but to then feel so passionate to share it with others?
I so appreciate that question. I mean, who doesn't love to talk about themselves, right? So I actually initially went to transformational education because I was kind of burned out on this career. I was doing nonprofit work and it was not at all interesting to me. I hated to have to answer to a board of directors. They just bored me, literally silly. And then I also wanted to heal my relationship with my mom. So I took a weekend seminar at the recommendation of a close family friend. I got a new career, which was sales, by some magical twists and turns that were supposed to happen. And I also did heal my relationship with my mom, which was really beautiful and fulfilling until the day that she died 6 years ago. Um, but then after immersion in that system, I one day thought to myself, do we ever do anything in this system except sit in chairs with blinds closed? And that was the moment that I started searching for the wisdom of the body. So I'd been engaging with what I like to say, the wisdom from the neck up. But all of a sudden I got curious about what's the wisdom between the neck and the toes. There's a lot of real estate down there. What's the purpose of all that real estate? So it was just a few days later that my friend said to me, a trusted friend, I'll never forget this. She said to me, "Do you love your job?" And I said, "I like it." And she said, "That's a no." And I was like downright offended. Like, what do you mean by that's a no? What the hell does it even mean to love your job? Literally, this was 30 something years ago, and people were not talking about do what you love, the money will follow. That was not a phrase in the jargon. So I didn't know what to say. She just said to me, "Come do a session with me." And that's how it all started, is that I told her my truth, and she showed me a black and white register that was much starker than the one that I was painting with. And it was much more realistic, to tell you the truth. I'd outgrown my job. Not that it wasn't a great job. I had just outgrown it.
Wow. And one of the other things that we've had conversations about is how this work that you do in nurturing yourself also impacts the relationships that you have, especially with men, right? Like when we're talking about like feminine and masculine energy, I would love to have you talk a little bit more about the importance of being in this nurturing, loving energy and how that impacts a woman's relationship with their current partner or the partner that they're looking to attract in their life.
Do you know, I haven't argued with anyone in years.
Wow. Okay, so that's a really huge claim.
It's a claim, right?
Yes. You have not argued with anyone.
Argue anymore. I have alternatives to arguing.
Yeah. So let's share. Can you share a secret of one of them?
Yeah, I'll do that. I don't need to argue because I would rather be connected than be right. Even with my son, I have a 20-year-old son. He's a man. He says preposterous things based on his experience of being alive. He says things that ruffle my feathers, but I just don't have to argue. I don't have to be right. I don't have to make him see my point of view. And the alternative is really accepting that the other person has their own point of view, and that when they want me to be their teacher, they'll ask me. Most people don't have any interest in me being their teacher.
Yeah. So I'm curious because you mentioned your son, right, as an example of not necessarily fighting with him. And I'm sure we have lots of moms listening. Everyone wants the best for their kids, right? So when something happens with a child, whether it doesn't matter the age or gender, right? Like,
not really.
So how do you show up in a relationship when your child is not necessarily doing what you want them to do, or they're not going in the path or direction you want?
My child rarely, if ever, does what I want him to do. In fact, I've tried to stop having desires for my child and to have desires for myself.
Yeah.
You know, from a young age, our kids have their own minds, and we do think we know what's best for them. And mostly, well, you answer this for me. Do you learn from other people's mistakes? Like when people give you good advice, do you follow it?
Well, it's clearly so much easier when you do it yourself than when you try to do something that someone else tells you to do.
Because how we learn is through our own experience. I mean, if kids learned from high school we would all graduate as geniuses because tons of information has been pumped into our heads. The only thing is we're not listening to any of it. And we really don't care. We just want to get out and live our lives. So I recognized pretty early on that he was going to do whatever he wanted to do. Now, it doesn't mean I don't talk. I didn't say I haven't had a conversation in years.
Yeah.
I tell him what I think. But when he starts arguing back, I just don't argue. I feel like what I have to say stands on its own merits. It's my lived experience.
Yeah.
His lived experience, he wants to talk about how my lived experience is wrong. Well, I don't think his lived experience is wrong. His lived experience is right for him. And I mean, oh my God, if I lived like I lived when I was 20, that would be so hilarious. I have a different lived experience at this point, but it doesn't mean mine's right and his is wrong. We exchange perspectives, and he does try to convince me that he's right, but I don't try to convince him that I'm right because he's not listening anyway.
Well, I like that what you just said from a role model perspective. Like, he may try to convince you that he's right, but you don't fall into that trap. And what you're doing is you're leading by example by not, it's like you have this boundary. You're not saying here's my boundary, but you're living in this boundary of not doing that, which is such a great example for our children. I see so many moms that they wouldn't call themselves helicopter parents, but they want the best for their kids and they want to butt in, right? They want to help.
I want to, believe me.
Right?
I just noticed that it doesn't create connection to butt in.
Yeah, it's
it
like when you
destroys the connection between us.
When you try to do that, it actually hurts them more than it does help. I had my oldest is 24, and one of the things he had said to me was, "Mom, thank you so much for teaching me how to do things on my own." Like living by example and letting me learn how to do things as opposed to teaching me, showing me, telling me along the way.
What a great acknowledgement.
Yes, thank you. And it's so fascinating because it's like we all want that validation from others, right? Well, here's the other thing too, and I'm sure you've seen this, is it's so much easier to take a look at someone else than it is ourselves.
Yeah. In other words, it's easier to be critical than reflective, but mainly only because we've not had the example of being reflective. I mean, if you grew up at a dinner table where parents criticized your siblings' manners, they criticized the government, they criticized their employer, they were always finding fault with, then you learn to criticize.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that criticism is probably the biggest thing that gets in the way of our relationships, especially our relationships with men from a partnership perspective, right? Because the thing that a man wants most is respect. And if a woman is always complaining, nagging, complaining, criticizing, whatever it is, whether it's the towels not being folded appropriately or the shoes being in the wrong spot.
Any of those are easy targets.
Yes, but it's the whole concept around why are we doing this criticizing as opposed to focusing on that connection. I mean, I'd love to hear some of your insights from a partnership perspective. Like, how do women do that? How do we teach them to do that?
Oh gosh, I just love that. That is really the whole premise behind the How to Talk to Men class, which I've been leading since, I don't know, maybe 2006 or 2007. Yeah, so criticism is pretty easy, and it does assume superiority.
Mm.
Like, I know what you should be doing. I know the way it should be done. I'm right.
Mhm.
You're wrong. You're a bonehead. And that totally destroys connection. And I just assume that whatever my lover is doing is right.
Mhm.
And if I disagree with it in some way, then I'm going to ask him about it. Like, maybe what was your thinking behind that? But,
Mm.
he has his own demons that he's dealing
Yeah.
with. And he's a grown man. He doesn't need me to help him deal with his demons. If he wants my help, he'll ask me. It's happened once or twice.
Mhm.
But he has other sources that he turns to for various kinds of counsel and advice. And I feel like that is really as it should be. The dynamic that I see very often in women and men is the woman turns into the mother, where
Mm.
she's correcting her partner, and then he turns into the child because he doesn't know how to stand up and say, hey, that's none of your business, or that crossed my boundaries, or I'm offended, don't talk to me that way,
Mhm.
or that isn't the way I want our relationship to go. That's really why I teach women the relating skills, is because we're maestros of relationship and we're completely hooked on it. We're addicted to relationships. Our
Yeah.
relationships are our life, our children, our grandchildren, our spouses, even our community and our volunteer groups. Those people become really bonded with us.
Yeah.
Like, we are intimately involved in their lives. Women can sit down and they never met each other before, and they meet at some volunteer event, and within a half an hour they know all about each other's lives, each other's marriages, their struggles, because women love to share intimacy. But when we start to manage our men, that's when
Mm.
we lose the intimacy. And we
Yeah. I love how you
wonder,
just
where
said
did it
that.
go? Well, where it went was, you stopped being a partner on the same level, and you started pulling your superiority complex on him and acting like you know what's right for him. I just assume that adults know what's right for them, and even
Mhm.
that children know what's right for them. A lot of
Yeah.
times, children, like, I remember my
Yeah.
son, once I had a dream when he was in fourth, I think he was 4 years old, or maybe five. And I had a dream that he stopped me as I was walking him to his class. And he said, Mom, I can go by myself from here. And I woke up the next morning and I was a little sad, like, kind of tugged at my heartstrings, right? Well, that morning I was walking him to class, and literally at the end of the long haul, he said to me, Mom, I can go by myself. And I was
Mm.
like, oh my God, my dream, it's actually happening. And I said, okay, love. And he walked all the way down the hall, past all the other classrooms. And then he got to the last room, and he stopped before the door, and he turned around and he waved at me. And we did the I love you sign back at each other, which we
Oh.
always did. And then he was gone. And I was like, oh, this is what it is to be a mother, is I'm constantly going to be letting go. But
Yeah.
that's what it is with a partner too. I mean, when I get out of his bed in the morning and I go along my day, I have to let go of him. He's going to now have a life without me for the next till I see him again. And that
Yeah.
is really healthy. That's appropriate. Men and women, can I tell one story?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So there's the yin yang. It's the continuum of, you could say masculine, feminine, or you
Mhm.
could say receptive, penetrative. There's very many different polarities that describe the yin yang dynamic. But one I like to use is, because I feel like what I've learned from relationship is all about science. If there's any science nerds listening,
Mm.
relationships can literally be expressed in the dynamics of all sciences. So if you call yin cool and you call yang warm, or you call yin air or water, and you call yang fire or earth, which is different polarities that different systems use to describe those different energies, you can see that far apart, water and fire don't affect each other very much. Close together, water extinguishes the fire, or fire evaporates the water. But if you move them just the right distance apart, then the fire acts on the water and you create steam. So distance is important. Proximity is important.
I love that. I've never heard that analogy before, and I literally got chills through my body as you were talking about that, because I think as women, we want intimacy, we want connection, right? Like we want this. But what I'm just hearing you say is when you do that, when you have the water and the fire come together like that, like it's actually not what we want. We want the woman and the man to be themselves here, so that when you do come together, you can create that powerful steam. You're not trying to run the other one over, kind of a thing. Oh my gosh, I love this. That was a great way to try to wrap some of this stuff up, because I think, again, as women, what I've seen many of us do is emasculate our men. And we just don't realize it. I think a lot of times what we do is we try to treat our men like our sisters. And it doesn't work. It's not the way to be in relationship with a man. So you can have a woman who's phenomenal in rocking her numbers, right? And doing great in her business, but be falling short in the relationship component of things because she hasn't learned how to live in that feminine, nurturing energy. And like you had mentioned, there's this assuming this superiority, right? It's I like to call it the I am woman, hear me roar complex, right? Like, I don't like that phrase. It's important for us to be independent, but there's a difference between this superior independence and this freedom independence that you described with the fire and the water. And that's what it is that we're really searching for. It's that nurturing component with ourself, that when we do meet that partner, that we're able to create this other thing that you can't see. That's the other crazy thing too, right? When you're in your feminine, you're not thinking, you're feeling. It goes back to the conversation you and I even had the other day, right? In regards to feminine magnetism and attraction that you had said about the wind, right? You can't necessarily see the wind, but you can see the impacts of it. And I think that's one of the things that's so important about nurturing that feminine energy. And nurturing doesn't mean enabling and over-loving. And I think that's where women get confused and say, I'm a very loving and caring and compassionate and nurturing person. But when it oversteps the bounds, right, that's what we're talking about. But we haven't been taught how to do that. Most of our parents, I know my parents didn't teach me that. I don't know if your parents taught you that. We didn't learn relationships in school.
No.
Right?
No,
Like,
what we did learn was, and this is to the point of proximity that we were talking about. So really the only domain that is feminine that I see is the home. Every other domain, they were designed by the masculine intelligence, the educational system, the military, the government, the court systems, business. It's all product of masculine creativity. The home is really the only place that is typically a product of feminine creativity. So there's one last holdout where you can expect to go and be able to let your guard down and be emotional.
Mm.
But women now, there's more women than men in the workforce. So we go out to a masculine environment all day long with men and the way that the masculine mind created things. And then we come home and we're trying to run the household. So we're also using our masculine to make the household run. And there's just dang little feminine available to go around. And because we are all educated in the masculine system, including you and me, we are educated alongside men, but the things that make us women were never cultivated. They weren't brought forth, like our innate ability to go into a party and see who's with who's getting with who's met with who. We can see all those things, and all the men see is the food and maybe the sexy woman.
Sure.
We can see all the interrelationships. Yet, because we don't spend a lot of time cultivating those skills, and we spend a ton of time cultivating our linear production skills to be a part of society, just society in general is missing the nurturing factor of tenderness, listening, taking your time, slowing down, not getting things done, but just being in the moment. There's not a lot of people that have those skills or have the time to realize that they not only don't have those skills for themselves, but then that compression radiates out to their families. They don't have time for their man, or they don't have time for their kid because they're busy getting things done. And I think it's like a terrible cost to society that we don't take the time to check in with our sisters, with ourselves, to feel our emotions, to cry, to rage, to laugh, to get rid of that stuff. Those are luxuries that we used to have because we would spend all day doing the cooking or the laundry or the what have you, fetching the water with our sisters while the men went out, and there was that distance between the men and the women. But now there's that almost all the time we're on top of each other, and it's trying, to say the least. Women need our own space to ourselves. We need our own sisterhood. Literally, that's why my workshops, either they're immersive for a couple of long back-to-back days, or my 12-month program is 3 times a week, because I realized that once a week, it almost doesn't even show up on a woman's radar. She's so busy with other things.
That's just it. It's almost kind of like saying, I'm going to go to the gym once a week.
Once a week,
Like,
right?
If you want to go work out once a week isn't enough. Same thing with your with relationship building, nurturing skills to dive into yourself as a woman. It takes intentional effort and attention. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be hard, right? But
No, it's not really hard.
It's not hard. Just like going to the gym isn't hard, but it's intentional focus.
Yeah.
And I think that is,
we were talking, I think we had a 2-hour conversation, but at the end of the conversation, I felt deeply related to you. What was important to you, what was coming up for you that you were excited about, what was coming up for you that you weren't excited about. Like, I really got to know you. And that is what is so vitally important to me. I don't want to be just a flash in the pan and not memorable. I want to be someone that people remember how they felt when they were with me. And one of my mentors said, people will seldom remember what you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And I thought that was super important. And that's why I don't argue, by the way, back to the point. is because I don't want to be the catalyst for people feeling bad about themselves. There's enough stuff out there that people feel bad about themselves, and we beat ourselves up about every little thing as a matter of habit. So I want people to walk away from me where I'm the catalyst for them feeling good about themselves.
And
That
thank you
makes
so
me
much.
feel good about myself. That
Yes,
I
yes.
skill set, like a woman can actually even get pissed at me. I know it's not really at me, but she can let her anger out around me, and I'm going to make
Yes.
her right. She's
Mhm.
right. Thank goodness
Yeah.
I was here for her to let her anger out. It didn't have anything to do with me. I don't
Yeah.
take it personally. She just finally found a space where she could decompress. That's incredible that I can give her that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time here with us today. This was a great topic to just dive deeper into why it's so important to nurture ourselves as women and how it relates to not just our kids, our partners, but how it then relates to any kind of relationship we have in our life, that we have not been taught how to really show up in relationships, especially with men. And that's one of the reasons why you teach a lot of what you do. I was just kind of looking some notes here that your mission is to develop women leaders from the home front and the global stage, right?
Literally, we're leading everywhere. Women
Yes,
are
yes.
leading whether we even know it or not. And we're either leading by influencing people around us in a painful way, or we're leading by influencing them in an inspiring way.
Well, as we
And if
wrap up, do
we
you want to go
feel crappy
ahead?
about ourselves, then people around us will feel crappy about themselves. It's all
Yeah.
contagious. I'm so glad that you invited me. Thank you, Jen.
Oh, thank you so much. And if you want, please go ahead and share with others how they can connect with you. And I know you've got this upcoming retreat that you have happening in October.
Yeah, so everyone wants to come to Austin, Texas, and the weather has finally cooled off. Goodness, it's only 86 today. So October 14th and 15th, which is about the height of the Austin fall, we're going to have a How to Talk to Men workshop. Don't let the name fool you too much. It's really all about women, about the community of women, about playing and laughing and revealing and having intimacy with other women. And you can find that on my website, which is businessaspleasure.com. So when you're tired of business as usual, and who isn't, then you should come to Business as Pleasure. And you can find the How to Talk to Men workshop there. You can find, I think there's some free conversations with me available on there. And there's something about the signature program also, which is called the Life Worth Living Nurtuary. Best thing, just schedule a call with me and we can connect. I'd love to hear what you're dealing with, because women conversely have more opportunity than in any other time in the history of humanity. Plus, we also have more challenges. So I would say that women that are the wise ones get in community so they have plenty of support.
Well, thank you so much. And I will include those details in the show notes as well, too. So for those of you that want to go ahead and check that out online, you can grab that information as well. It has been an honor and privilege having you here, Karen. I know we have so many amazing conversations, but to be able to be here and talk about this so that it's kind of like other people are like flies on the wall hearing us talk. It's always so much fun.
Thank you. Thanks for your insightful questions and for your appreciation.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you everyone for listening, and stay tuned for additional episodes as we continue to dive deeper into what it means to live in your feminine, to actually step into and living a sensual feminine life.
Thank you so much for listening to the Sensual Feminine Life podcast. I'm your host, Jen Bagaisky. If you have enjoyed what you heard today, be sure to hit the follow button so you don't miss future episodes. And leave a review to help reach other passionate women like you know they are not alone in this journey to experiencing thriving relationships, exquisite pleasure, and sexy confidence. If you have felt a calling to take this work to a deeper level, this is your sacred invitation to join my free Facebook group, Essential Feminine Life, or schedule a heart to heart with me to learn more about how you can take this work to the next level and say yes to your pleasure and your desire.